Okay, hill running. Like any other type of running, hill running, don't think that to be a good hill runner, you need to be running in the hills or in the mountains all the time, every run, all week, or most runs. Don't think that. You need to be a good hill runner, and whether you kind of focusing on, the question that I got asked was specifically about Passatore, so 40k flat, 10k uphill, 10k downhill, 40k flat. So how do I get good for that uphill and downhill section? But the races that I do in Spain, here in Thailand, just uphill races. There's vertical kilometers that you can do, where you're covering a kilometer vertical within usually the space of between 5 kilometers and 10 kilometers, but usually around about 20%, 5 kilometers, which is the one in Pradalano, close to Granada. And it's a great. These runs are great because it really separates the men from the boys. If you're a good hill runner, you're going to be a good runner. You're going to be naturally fitter and naturally stronger where it really counts. So the glutes are going to be taking the majority of the work. The hamstrings are going to be taking the majority of the work. The calves and the lower legs are going to be super robust. And what you do subconsciously, but then consciously, as you realize what's happening, is you naturally, as you begin to run for the first time, you become more efficient at moving over the ground, more effective at moving over the ground faster. And that's just because we inherently kind of look at the shortcuts in order to do stuff. Back in the day, if you kind of like going into a walk to find some food, you would take the shortest route because you want to conserve energy. And that's exactly what you do with running. With hill running, where there's nowhere to escape, there's no resting in hill running. It's very difficult if you're not used to running uphill. It's very difficult to try to kind of get your heart rate, to lower your heart rate, to get your breath back if you've gone into the red zone. So what you'll start to do is you'll notice that your running style improves. You'll notice that the fastest way to get up that hill is to drive the arms and to keep the arms really, really straight. You'll notice that the push off and the relationship between where your foot lands, mid-foot, and where you push off toe, and that relationship to the glute has got to be rock solid. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to move up the mountain or the hill as efficiently, as quick, as effectively, and with less energy. And that's what I mean by efficiently, more economically. And therefore, it's going to take you, for the same effort, it's going to take you longer. And that's not what we're all about as humans. We want to be up that mountain as quickly as possible for the lowest amount of energy. It's just that simple. So what you want to be is, and especially like a race like 40k flat, 10k uphill, 10k downhill, you're already gonna, if you're not prepared, you're already gonna have some fatigue in the legs. Everybody will have, unless those that really hold it back and have really done their homework, really done the training. They're going to be fresh at that kind of 40k back mark, and that's when you want to be fresh, especially in the Passatore race. Like in the Subido a Pico Valletta in Spain, you want to be fresh with 15 kilometers to go, because that's when you're above 2,400 meters. That's when that high altitude hits. That's when the wind starts to hit. You're out of the hot temperatures, but the hot temperatures for the last 2-3 hours have been taken out of you, like 35, 40, 45 degrees Celsius. And now you want to be fresh. Like, in order to do that, you need to be a good hill runner, a good uphill runner, yeah? So the way I would start is focus on short distances and shorter, not necessarily all out sprints, but it might feel that way and to begin with. So I would start with something as simple as find a local hill as close to your house as possible that you can use, that's ideally at least 5-6% gradient. That would be the perfect amount, 5-6%. 5-6% means that you start to become a good hill runner, and then you've got a progression on from there to start to run towards 7, 8, 9, 10%. And then once you get to sort of 15, 20%, there's an argument, depending on the length, the longer the race goes, there's an argument that you should be walking at those kind of gradients. 15, 20%. Unless you're Killian or Jim Walmsley or somebody who's like used to doing that, and it's another training process. It's almost like another type of running. which is the same thing. Like if you're used to running a flat marathon and now you want to run 50k uphill or Il Passatore or an ultra marathon that includes a lot of uphills and downhills, it's like another sport. It's another type of running. You've got to prepare the body for that. So I'd start with find something on your doorstep as close to your house as possible, as little deterrent as possible to start the session, or get a treadmill. Or get to a treadmill that has got a decent incline and it's quite a relatively new treadmill or in good shape, and then you can do as much uphill as you want. And ideally, if you're going to be doing the uphill and you know you're going to prepare for something that's got downhill as well, then that treadmill will have a decline function, which is much more difficult to find, but they are out there and it's more popular to find them now. And then what I would do is just the same as interval training. I'd start with 1 minute repeats, just 1 minute. Say something like 12 times 1 minute. The stuff that you need to think about when you're running hill intervals, especially from the start, if you're just getting into it, is you don't want to do too much gradient too quickly. You don't want to do too much pace too quickly, so run too fast out of your comfort zone. And you don't want to do too much volume. And those three are the main variables: speed, gradient, and total volume. Yeah. So if, for instance, okay, we start the session, we start the training program, or you getting fit and ready to start the training program with 12 times 1 minute, and you run back down. So at the top, I would do something like I'd warm up properly, so that I get to the point where I'm walking for the first 400 meters, slow jog 300 meters. I'm just checking the body's okay, freshen the body up, do some dynamic stretching. Get the glutes firing, super important. Get the glutes firing. Get your feet moving fast. Get the relationship between the feet and the glutes really strong. You want fast feet and strong glutes. And then I would do like a 30, 45 second, a couple of those going up the hill. Not long repetition, 12 times 1 minute. Not a long time 1 minute, but it will feel like it initially when you're going uphill. There's nothing for free when you're going uphill. So you'll really feel that you get a lot out of that 12 minutes working hard. And the progression, you've got to start small, but the progressions from there are really, really useful. And you can't do 20 times 1 minute before you've done 12 times 1 minute. You've got to do 12 times 1 minute and 15, then maybe 18, then maybe 20, and then maybe 10 times 2 minutes, and then 15 times a minute and a half, that kind of thing. So the progressions are really simple from there. A little bit more distance, same gradient. If you want to run a different gradient, you want to run a steeper hill, then bring the pace down so that the body can handle it. It's not all about the heart and lungs when you're running uphill. There's a lot more strain on the lower legs, a lot more strain on the whole leg. But in terms of the running muscles, Achilles, just watch out with your Achilles. Make sure that you're slowly running up the hill. And if that first 12 times 1 minute needs to be you really comfortably, like 130 beats, 140 beats, really kind of low in zone 1 or zone 2, getting up that mountain and just preparing the body, you're still going to get a great benefit from running uphill. And then if you turn around, just take a breather for 15 seconds, try to quantify that time, try to measure that time so that you can look at the progress over the weeks that you're making, and then run down and run properly and look at your style as you're running downhill. So make sure, exactly the same as running uphill or flat, make sure your toe, ankle, knee, hip is all aligned, and make sure your arms are straight. Nice little secret with uphill running, that as you look at your flat running time, and obviously the shorter distance that you do, probably the longer your stride length. If you're going uphill, shorter stride lengths will put a lot more, take a lot less off the stress off the body, off the muscles, and therefore need less oxygen, but it will put more onto the heart and lungs. So you'll be so it's a little bit like being on the bicycle and doing high cadence. If you go on the bicycle and your cadence is 60, you're going to be putting a lot on the muscles to do 35 kilometers an hour. Whereas if you spin at 100 cadence per minute, then it's a lot more on the heart and lungs, and therefore the blood's improving. Yeah, so it's all about sort of pushing red blood cells, oxygen to the muscles. Simple as that. So yeah, it's a great session to start with. The progressions are quite simple from there, and I work up to 10 times 5 minutes, 5 times 10 minutes, depending on the length of the run, like 50k uphill, it's going to take 4 hours, the best part of 4 hours. So in order to get ready for that, then I need to shift my long run so it's specific to that as well. That's another conversation, that's another video. But initially, if you start with the intervals, start putting that into your weekly schedule, then once a week you're hitting the intervals on hill at 5-6%, whether treadmill or local hill, and then you gradually have the progressions for them. Ideally, you've got plenty of mountain space or plenty of hill space to go at, then you're good. But if you've got access to a hill that you can run up for 5 minutes and then run down for 5 minutes, you're going to be able to get good at running uphill and downhill. If you've got access to, like I have in the south of Spain, 40 kilometers uphill, and here 40 kilometers uphill, on my doorstep 18 kilometers uphill, you're laughing.